listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's up, everybody? Hope you're well, and thank you for choosing to listen to my Straight to Video podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Lane, and today is a fun one, totally in the world of VHS and video stores, which I love to dive into whenever possible. And we're going transatlantic to Edmonton, Canada, to speak to Kevin Martin. Now, Kevin has for pretty much 20 years been the owner, and I'm going to say curator, of the Lobby DVD shop, as this place is a real work of art. Packed to the gills with videotapes, DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, and walls plastered with movie posters and surrounded by cool movie memorabilia. It's like the older and wiser big brother of our own 80s video shop here in the UK. Now, not only does Kev run this incredible shop, he's also star of the new movie The Last Video Store, which has been touring movie festivals across Canada, the USA and the UK, and finally hits Blu-ray this week courtesy of Arrow Video here in the UK. I was lucky enough to meet Kev along with his co-star Josh Lenner and the movie's director Cody Kennedy at Celluloid Screams Festival in Sheffield recently, and I knew right away Kev would make an awesome guest on the show, and I wasn't wrong. Please, if you're a fan of anything I do with straight to video, then this new movie, The Last Video Store, is right up your street, and I would love to know what you think. We chat all about the journey to making this film a reality, along with Kev's journey of falling in love with movies, right through to owning his own video store and lots more in one of my favourite chats for a while. This Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo editing software which I use all the time for graphic design. Affinity Photo is used to create the podcast episode artwork you see each week, and it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market, so please check them out at affinity.serif.com. Alright, let's freaking do this. As mentioned, The Last Video Store is out now from Arrow Video. You can order from them direct at arrowfilms.com, and make sure to give Kev a shout on Instagram at VideoStoreKev. But for now, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Kevin Martin.
Morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you, my friend.
Last time I saw you, you were 30 miles up the road from me. How's your morning treating you? Did you go out last night?
Worked at the bar last night, so going on fumes here, but coffee's kicking in. And hey, you gave me a purpose to get out of bed, or else you'd sleep till God knows how long. It's my day off, but I love talking the nerd talk, so I'm good.
Love it, man.
Yeah, baby.
Thanks for doing this. It was great to meet in Sheffield a couple of weeks ago. So did you enjoy that whole trip?
Oh, it was a whirlwind, man. It was, the movies lied to me. I was expecting to come in. It was going to be raining the whole time. And except for that last night, it was sunny. It was weird. It was like, you mean the movies lied?
Well, you timed it well. We've got about 5 inches of snow today.
Yeah, actually here too. I just went outside for our smoke and it is miserably cold and it's snow everywhere. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go again. It's a magical time of the year.
If we can start by going back to some of your own very early movie renting experiences when you were growing up, are there any particular trips to the video store that stick in your mind or memorable movie picks that had a massive effect on you?
Oh, absolutely. See, growing up as a kid in the 80s, as many of us did, now that we're getting older, the VCR was our babysitter. I think we got our first VCR probably 1983, 84. I was, 7.
Peak time right there.
Dear Lord. It was a while ago. This was the glorious days of the mom and pop video stores where there was no restriction, where my father gave me the video store card. He's like, okay, the name of our video store, ironically, was called Mick Video. It had the golden arches and everything. Back in the day when people could name their stores whatever. Actually, McDonald's did end up suing them and shutting them down. That's switch your name, but whatever. Yeah, going to the video store, obviously no internet back then. So we were, as young, budding cinephile nerds, it was all about the movie covers that would lure us in. And every video store had that section where they dealt with the horror movies. It was like it was like the adult room, basically. They had the saloon doors and creaky wooden floor and all the red illuminated lighting, which is kind of how I matched my store up in modern times. The first movies I remember grabbing right away was the original Creep Show and Return of the Living Dead. No surprise there. It it was good. This was been like during the era over in your neck of the woods with the video nasties, the news was blowing up. Like I always joke, I tell the younger generation now, if I had my store with the movies that I deal with back then, I'd be in jail. It's that simple. I mean, it was hysterics, right? Satanic panic, pandemonium. The movies are going to corrupt us. No, there was no restriction over here. So it always sucks getting older, but be very grateful that 10-year-old me back then could walk out with Dawn of the Dead and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Noah would blink an eye, Let the corruption begin, my friend, because once you get a taste for that, it was a combination of going to the video store and discovering the magnificence that was Fangoria magazine during that era where, again, it's great that everything we can talk like we're talking now with the technology we have. But there was and always will be something magical. But all we had to go on was maybe a magazine like Fangoria or Starlog or the covers of the movies. Or maybe we'd see like a movie trailer on the telly late at night. And I'm like, oh, what's this?
Word of mouth from your friends in the playground as well.
You were the cool kid when like you got to see that movie and you went to school the next day and you're ranting and raving about Friday the 13th part 2 or something like that to your buddies. You're meticulously breaking down every scene and you have their attention. It's like telling campfire tales in the summer camp, but instead you got them at the playground. You're like, and then Jason came and he walked in the bathroom and this guy was having a shower and he slammed his hand through the shower door and he crushed his face. Like, no way. Yeah, man. And then usually your buddies are like, my parents wouldn't let me watch that. Like, well, come over to my place and I won't tell, it's totally cool. But definitely going to the video stores, there were a couple. And I realized I became that annoying kid in hindsight when I was like 11 or 12, where I would just linger in the store and I would like volunteer to help the women that were working. Can I put the movies away for you and stuff? Looking back, I must have been just a pain in the ass pestering kid, but they were always lovely. It just let me hang. And because, I said in the movie, I know it's hard to believe, but I wasn't always the most popular kid growing up. So movies were like my sanctuary, until we found our fellow nerds that we all clung together with.
What was a bigger deal for you, renting movies or seeing them in the cinema? Did each one hold its special place, like the bigger films on the cinema screen and more obscure ones on tape?
The video store was huge, but my father was in the military, so we moved around a lot. And we ended up moving to this very small military base on the eastern side of Canada. And there was one movie theater with one screen. And they would switch the movie every 3 days. You'd get like your program in the mailbox and you'd see what's playing. Anyways, because again, I was a new kid. This was between the ages of 9 and 11. The guy that ran the theater, my dad was his boss. He's like, listen, let my kid watch whatever. I don't care. It's just whatever he wants to go see. So looking back, that 3 years of my life, I was so spoiled as a kid. But that's like literally what changed everything for me, because you have to picture it. You're 9 years old. And I'm sitting there with my popcorn and my soda, front row center, and I get to see Predator opening night twice. I get to see RoboCop on the big screen. I get to see Friday the 13th, part 5 and 6 on the big screen. I got to see Fright Night on the big screen. These are first runs. And you're very impressionable at that age. You're soaking it in like a sponge, right? Didn't realize how lucky I was until we moved back to a bigger city. And I think I tried to go see Jason Takes Manhattan and they wouldn't let me in because I wasn't 18. I'm like, what is my age? I was just not used to that. So those 3 years of living in the small town and seeing every freaking horror movie or every rated R movie that came out between 85 to 87 was just life changing. I always explain to my customers, like, you have to understand that era, being a kid, if you got to see Commando opening night in the big screen, which I did, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a god to us. He's carrying the log and you're like, oh my God, who is this magnificent bastard? No, it was fucking brilliant. And those kind of moments, I'll never forget them. Everything's larger than life back then. We weren't so cynical, I always say, if I could have one magic power, every time I watch a new movie, if I could click my brain and just see the movie through the point of view of my 12-year-old self, where reviews didn't matter. None of that mattered. It could be the worst movie, but you just like, there's something magical about it. I wish I could have that childhood like wonder back. But sadly, it's tough for us as we get older, where we do it to ourselves. Like, I don't know, man, I've heard a lot of shitty things about this movie. It's like, oh, did you see the Critical Drinkers review on it? Yeah, I don't know, like, or whatever, and we're already tainted before we even see the movie. But as a kid, going to the video store and going to the theaters, it was a beautiful time, baby. It was a beautiful time.
Wasn't the Wrath of of Khan your first cinema trip?
Yes, that was my first movie that I actually recall my father took me to. A lot of people would assume that my dad was a big cinephile and that's how, you get into it. It's not true at all. He wasn't. I kind of discovered it myself. But he took me to Wrath of Khan, and I remember I was like, obviously bawling my eyes out when Spock died. And, then you got to get the sage advice from your parent going, listen, son, it's going to be okay. He'll be back. It's called a sequel. And of course, you're like, how do you know this? Because it made money. But yeah, Wrath of Khan was actually rewatched it 2 days ago again. And that movie holds up so fucking good, man.
Such a step up from the motion picture, which I fell asleep watching.
Oh, man, I tried to rewatch it. And there are defenders and apologists. But I'm like, guys, really, I know it was a big deal for Star Trek to come back. But did we really need a 15-minute tracking shot of the ship coming out of the dock? Yeah, we get it. Good model work. Very impressive. But we've already seen Star Wars. Let's move on.
Today, you run the Lobby DVD shop, which you began almost 20 years ago, or is it 20 years this year?
It'll be 20 years next summer, August. Opened up in August of 2005. So, yeah.
Was there like a real changeover time between VHS and DVD? I mean, can you tell us a little about how it all came to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, VHS was pretty much all dead. In fact, if I recall, 2005 was the last time at that point a major Hollywood movie was released on VHS. And I believe that movie, at least here in North America, was David Cronenberg's History of Violence. That was the last movie to get a full VHS run. I had worked at HMV, ironically, in the late 90s during the transition of VHS to DVD. I got fired after 6 months, a lot of disagreements with my bosses, whatever. And that's when one of them joked, like, why don't you just open up your own store? I'm like, maybe I will. True story. But yeah, I remember when the first DVDs came out and it was like such a small section. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to last. And I was so fucking stubborn, dude. I was like, I had a massive VHS collection and I'm like, I am not starting over. What my friends did, it was a birthday. They bought me 5 DVDs and they lent me a player for the weekend, lent me a player. So, I put that first DVD in. I think it might have been Clerks. Anyways, yeah, 4Ks are nice, Blu-rays are nice, but going from VHS to DVD was mind-blowing. It was like, holy shit, I don't have to rewind. I can listen to the director talk about his movie while I'm watching it. There are documentaries, there's deleted scenes. Stop it. It's amazing. It's crazy. So I obviously ran out and bought the first DVD player I could afford right after that weekend. It was some shitty no-name brand and it was about 800 Canadian. So it would have been about, 400 quid, I guess. And it was a terrible player, but that's what we had to pay. Back then, first DVD I remember buying was Maniac. And Maniac was, would be about 30 pounds, I suppose. But yeah, that transition was amazing. I remember when I opened up in 2005, I was like, oh, thank God this isn't like the 80s where I had to deal with beta and VHS. I don't have to buy 2 different formats. And then, of course, Blu-rays came out. I'm like, shit, here we go again, I'm like, I don't know if Blu-rays are going to last. Yeah, and it's sort of nicer picture quality, but it wasn't as big of a deal. I think the first Blu-ray that ever hit my store was Polanski's Repulsion, Criterion Edition. I'm like, I remember seeing a Blu-ray case for the first time. I'm like, these are funny looking, a little bit smaller, but And then, now we know the world now it's all 4K. I'm pretty sure 8Ks are around the corner. It was an interesting transition for sure.
What was that moment, that light bulb trigger moment for you to set up your store? Was it getting fired from HMV or was there something else where you saw a niche? Because I think you said they were in Edmonton, there were 30 or 40 other stores. So How did you plan? Well, what made you think I can compete with this or make mine stand out?
Well, to be honest, I worked in the bar industry for 25 years and still do. Hence, I'm a little bit hazy today from working last night. I figured I don't want to be, it's like, what have I contributed to society? I'm like, oh, I get people drunk or, I play music while they get drunk. I'm like, Anyways, the story goes, my friend Chris Pavoda, he's another fellow Canadian filmmaker. He made a movie called Dead Dicks a few years ago. Very cool indie flick here in Canada. He originally opened shop up in my city and it was called Oddity Cinema. Now, he only had the store for about 11 months, and then he had to move back to East Coast. And he goes, do you know anybody that might want to take over the store? At that point, I was just like, yeah, movies are my passion, but, needed X amount of dollars. Luckily, I knew enough people in the community where I live were like, hey, I got this offer, guys, to take over my buddy's store, but he needs X amount of money. And bar industry, I got no credit. But anyways, my friends hooked me up with the cash. They gave it to me. So like, hey, I'll do it. Had no fucking idea what I was doing because it was like, Blockbusters around, all the big chains are around still. So I figured my friend Chris, his original plan with his store was he just picked the most outrageous titles, like just nothing but boutique labels. We're talking and Troma and all the exploitation cinema, basically the entire video nasties list in one store. So I said, okay, I'm gonna focus on that. And I'm gonna focus on cool shit that I like too. Not necessarily all horror movies, just, it was like the early 2000s. So like the Tarantino vibes were still there, that style of movies. The one thing is working in the bar industry when I worked at night, and the bars I worked at were all like punk rock and metal style bars. So whenever I DJ'd, I got to put on the movies in the background. And, with the glorious invention of subtitles, thank you, DVDs, people would get zoned in. You're like, they'd be sitting by themselves in the pub, like, I'm going to go home. But then they get into the movie, like, maybe I'll grab another pint and see how this Ricky O movie ends, Or they're like, holy shit, dude, what are we watching on the TVs? And I'm like, go talk to the DJ. I'm like, well, my friend, right now you're watching Ichi the Killer. And it's a spectacular thing indeed. So having that crossover of having customers that know me from the pub life and then the store being right down the street from the pubs, that's how I built up my clientele. And then through that, also, I didn't believe in making money, obviously, so I could do what other video stores didn't do, which is stay open.
That's a great way of looking at it. I didn't make no money, so I could stay open.
Yeah, exactly. A friend of mine told us what I lack in actual financial commodity, I had made up for with cultural commodity here in our little neck of the woods.
I'm taking that on board for our place.
Oh, fuck yeah, son. And then, just started adding more titles. And, I bring in about 120 new movies come in every week.
A week?
A week. I know, I'm a psychopath. You can rent or you can buy at my store. But I drop about, I'll give you, this week's order coming up is about 5,000 Canadian dollars, which is about 2,500 pounds every week. And I'm like, dear Lord, what am I doing? But I'm just too big of a nerd. I'm like, okay, what's coming out this week? Ooh, Godzilla -1 finally. So I'm bringing all these copies in and the boutique labels, and the demand is there. So again, thank God I still work at the bars. Thank God I don't have a wife or kids to worry about. My cat's fed. I'm good. The movies are the most important thing.
Do you get many indie filmmakers send you films?
And you've had a few, and here again is the other good thing. What the store hasn't made money. Well, we spawned a film festival in our city that I met some guys through my store. We started a film festival. It's done now. We had a good 13-year run, and it was called Dead Fest. We would take over our local movie theater down the street, kind of like the one in Sheffield, almost identical. And we would do retro screenings, but then we'd show new stuff too. And if we had enough money and we made good money off the beer sales in the theater, that we could afford to bring in guests and all that jazz. And we started the film festival in 2007. Remember, over the years, we were doing well enough that we were able to bring in guests like Michael Biehn from Terminator and Aliens was a guest of ours. And actually, he is the reason that we are now here also talking about a movie that we made. And I'll explain that in a bit. But yeah, and obviously creating a film festival. And that's ironically how I met my directors, was through the film festival. And that's how I met the store. But yeah, again, which one influenced me more? Video stores and movie theaters? Well, I run the film festival, seeing these kind of movies with 300 or 400 beer drinking fellow fans definitely gets you more fired up. I remember we had the first screenings of The Human Centipede when that came out, or Miami Connection, or the Dead Snow movies. And then, of course, more importantly, showing a 35 millimeter print of Army of Darkness, showing a 35 millimeter print of Night of the Creeps, showing a 35 of Return of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw 2, Maximum Overdrive, man, it's so cool to be able to show your obsession or passion, I'll just call it passion, or maybe the obsession, to the younger generation and get them all jazzed for it too, whether it's through the store or through a film festival.
I always think when you mentioned showing all those cult films, it's almost, in my head, when that happens in the local area, it's almost like an extension of the video shop. It's just a blown up version of it, in a way. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally does, because people were always they come into the store and the store kind of looks like the store in the movie. We built it after to look almost, but their couch is there. And that kind of jogged the idea. It's do you show movies in the video store? And I'm like, no, man, that's for me. I'm here 7 days a week. This is basically my home more than my home. So I got to be comfortable. But that definitely kickstarted the idea of well, why don't we do a film festival? First few years are a bit tough, but then obviously we became a more established film festival, aside from bringing in like people that were already known to the horror community, like Danielle Harris was a guest of ours. Henry Rollins was a guest of ours. That was huge. He came to my video store.
I saw a photo of that. That's awesome. What did he make of it?
Oh, dude, it was awesome. Of course, it was like the slowest day ever. Like nobody was in the store. So it's just Rollins by himself. I didn't like announce it, like, oh my God, Henry Rollins in my store. And like one good buddy come in, a good regular, and he's just looking at the new movie wall and he's like, hey, Kev. I'm like, hey, man. And then he does like the old double turn and he like loses his inner voice. Like, holy shit, is that Henry Rollins? Like 2 feet away from him, right? But yeah, he dug it. I think, and then, when we brought in younger unknown filmmakers like Astron 6, when they were guests of ours, when they made Father's Day, and they wanted to come check out the video store. And, we've had a relationship with them for the last decade, one way or another. And, they did help us with our movie too. My buddy Tyler McIntyre, and he made It's a Wonderful Knife last year, and he made Tragedy Girls. Tyler is from our neck of the woods. He used to be a customer at my video store. Kyle Ball, who made Skinamarink a couple of years ago. He is from here, and I think he used to come to my store too. So it's kind of cool knowing that like a lot of the younger kids, because after 20 years, time does fly by, now moved on and they're working in the film industry in Vancouver here in Canada. But they remember the video store that inspired them. Every time I get a movie in physically, and if I can find the director or whoever on Instagram, I will tag them. And I take a picture of their movies with rented tags on them. And man, the response is always, they lose their shit. Because think about it. If you're a director today, let's say you're between the ages of 30 and 50, the video store was your film school. So you've had a successful career. It's great getting your movies made. But honestly, there's probably a party that's saying, hey guys, check out my new movie. It's streaming on this platform. Look at it. Where it's way cooler for them. And they're like, holy shit, my movie is in an actual video store. The guys that made the movie Coffee Table earlier this year, I think they're from Argentina or Spain. Crazy movie. If you haven't seen it. Found him on Instagram and I took a picture and the director lost his shit. He's like, no way. And I'm like, dude, no way. I've sold your movie 30 times. Thank you for making a fucked up masterpiece, my friend.
Off the top of your head, do you recall the most rented or brought film in your shop?
Oh, easily, yeah. Okay, in 20 years, my number one selling movie is Cannibal Holocaust. I've sold it over 500 times. Oddly enough, though, this is where I was going to go into, I get labeled as a horror movie store. I understand that. About 50% of my inventory is horror movies. But stuff that I would have never carried 10 years ago, I would consider too mainstream, isn't mainstream anymore. The shit just goes missing off streaming sites. Nobody can find them. So in the last year, my number 2 best-selling movie, only because you can't get it in North America, might be music rights. I bring it in from Australia, Spice World, the Spice Girls movie. I've sold it almost 100 times. So I brought in one copy for myself because, yes, I had a thing for Sporty Spice back in the 90s. And I took a picture. I'm like, oh, yeah, guilty pleasure, guys. I apologize. And then everybody started messaging me, dude, can you get me one of those? I'm like, I thought I was a fucking weirdo. But no, yeah, it's crazy. So my store, yeah, gravitates from like, hey, man, can you give me that August Underground, that Serbian film, that Cannibal Holocaust to, Kev, can you get me Spice World? And I'm really trying to find a copy of Ernest Goes to Camp, or something stupid like that. I mean, half of the stuff I bring in is what I want to bring in, but the other half is just talking with people. And I kind of take it as a challenge. If I've never heard of it, I'm like, well, if I've never heard of it, then no one else is carrying it, then I'll totally bring it in. So I like being the bounty hunter of cinema, if you will. I will find you that movie and bring it back dead or alive for you, but it's coming.
So we're just about to see the Blu-ray release of your film, The Last Video Store, which has been screening all over the world, and I've been lucky enough to watch it, loved it. It's been a long, long road to this point. There's been many stops and evolutions along the way from, see if I miss any. We've had a Last Video Short, the straight-to-video B-movie Odyssey,
yep.
Tales from the Lobby,
yep.
Emmys for Magnetic Tape, and the Video Store Commercial. I don't know if there's any more.
There's that's a darn good. Oh, well, there was a failed attempt to shoot the feature movie back in 2014. We figured, yeah, we can shoot a feature movie for $10,000 and rebuild an entire video store and a car dealership lot. And knowing that the plot involved the video store being absolutely destroyed 20 minutes in, and it's me and Josh, who played Viper Jackson in the current movie, out into the real world, which is this analog, trippy world that's sort of real, but not really real. And like basically our original concept was fucking gonzo. It was like, Store is destroyed. We have to find a book that was called like the Videonomicon. It wasn't a tape. And we had to go to like this magical place that was like Jabba the Hutt's lair. And instead of Jabba, this character was called the Collector because he had the book and shit. There's all these creatures and weird aliens. I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
That needs to be a comic book, I think, a graphic novel.
Oh, and the original premise was my character's background was my parents couldn't afford to pay the late fees. So they abandoned me at the video store as a baby. And the original owner, his name was Lemmy. And he was played by our good buddy, Jeremy Gardner, who's been in movies like The Battery and After Midnight and Leech. He takes me in, but then he goes missing because he had to be part of what we call the Format Wars, which was actually a real war involving all the remaining video store owners, but they had to take on these cybernetic robots that were sent by Netflix. And then the war lasted 18 minutes because they got obliterated. So I was left to watch the store. It was a pretty high concept thing that ended with the video store turning into a kaiju robot monster fighting the Netflix robot monster in the downtown area. We were going to model that up and shit.
Yeah, that's pretty adventurous.
Yeah, we had to tone it down. So yeah, the whole thing started because going back to Michael Biehn, Corporal Hicks himself being a guest of ours, he was showing his new movie at the time. We're doing a double feature of his directorial debut, a movie called The Victim and the movie The Divide, which was pretty heavy too. With my programming partners, you're like, well, maybe we should do like a best of clip show and then welcome him on the stage, so everybody knows who he is. During this time, when we're doing our monthly screenings, we would have like little friendly contests, local filmmakers. And you can make a short based on this. Whoever wins, you win something from the real video store. And it was Tim and Cody that kept winning every fucking month. They were just so talented, right? So when Michael Biehn was coming, it was my former programming partner's idea. He goes, why don't we get Tim and Cody to film something in your video store? We'll pay tribute to Michael Biehn and then go from there. And actually, that almost didn't happen anyways because they wanted to shoot it in the real movie theater, but it just wasn't working out. So like, we'll use Kev's video store instead. So we shot this thing where Josh, again, Jackson from the movie, he crashes into my store naked, like Kyle Reese, Terminator style. And he pulls basically a VHS tape out of his ass and he would put it in. And then that goes into the clip montage of all Michael Bihn's greatest roles. Anyways, Michael and his wife, they got a huge kick out of it. And so did our crowd. At this point, we're doing monthly screenings. It's like, well, what are you guys doing next? And I'm like, nothing. And then we're like, okay, well, I guess we can film something else. So for a while, whatever movie we were showing, we would do a riff on it. So it was like a Battle Royale spoof, an Army of Darkness spoof, a Poltergeist spoof. And then cue Astron 6 come to Edmonton showing Father's Day. Well, we can't spoof a movie no one's heard of before. So that's when we came up with the idea of like, what if like Kev plays Kev and Josh will be like his assistant and Netflix keeps trying to shut down the store by sending goons in. And that was the whole Tales from the Lobby thing, which led to everybody's, I guess, favorite episode is the Christmas episode. I don't know if you see it. It'll be on the Blu-ray release. It's on YouTube. It's called 'Twas the Night of Tree Beast.
I've seen that with the Christmas tree is amazing.
Yeah, boy, that was 12 years ago now. Crazy. Yeah, people dug that. Then we did the short film, obviously, Glass Video Store, and that got accepted into Montreal's big film festival, Fantasia Film Festival, because I had already been going there to book movies for our fest. And it was the most funny thing because I'm like, oh, I've never submitted anything. Like, you got to go through all the paperwork. No, I just literally sent the short film from my phone to Mitch Davis, who ran Fantasia. And Mitch literally messaged me back like 10 minutes later. He's like, yep, you're in. You're good. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'll see you guys in July. Okay, that was easy. So the audience got a kick out of it there. And then, when the first failed attempt in the movie didn't work out, we're like, back here where I'm from, they had like this competition, the web series idea. Pitch your web series, do a pilot. And luckily we won and they gave us the money. And then we shot our 5-episode arc straight to video B-movie Odyssey, which funny enough, now that you've seen the movie and if you've seen the web series, if you think about it, a lot of people that have seen both after they watched the movie came up to me like, so is the movie a prequel to that web series? Because it kind of feels that way. Because in the web series, obviously, I'm about to burn down my store and I'm done with it. And then a magical beta tape shows up and I put it in and it was sent by the movie gods who are pissed at me for protecting them. So I get sucked into the TV and end up from one bad B movie to another. So we kind of ripped off Quantum Leap and Sliders, but whatever.
Yeah, I got Quantum Leap vibes.
That was a generational gap too. So I'm over a decade older than my directors and my other stars. So I was like, yeah, man, we're doing Quantum Leap. And they're looking at me like, what? I'm like, Sliders. Oh, okay. Right on. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Finally, after it was the video store commercial is the big key though. So business was lagging. Tim and Cody had moved to Vancouver to pursue their filming careers. Anyways, they felt they owed it to the store to come back and film one more little short in the video store to help business. So it was meant to be a legit commercial for my store for free. Problem is, they made it too good. And Cody's like, hey, maybe I could tinker with this and we can submit it to some more film festivals. Months go on. I'm like, dude, I thought you guys were making me a commercial to help my real video store out. Like, no, Kev, just hang tight. And then I guess I'm glad we waited because obviously that short got accepted to South by Southwest. You know, if you're a genre guy, like, holy shit, our short is playing at South by Southwest. And that's really what got the ball rolling for people to consider a feature movie based on these shorts. And we went to the Frontiers Film Market during the pandemic. So usually in a normal year, you'd go there, be on stage, all the money guys, all the idea guys, you pitch your idea. And then as the festival went on, you had your meetings all week. But with the pandemic going on, we had to do it over Zoom like we're doing now. So Tim and Cody, they flew to my city, Edmonton. In my real video store, we had it set up. And basically it felt like the speed dating equivalent of who wants to make our movie for us, you know? And it was funny because this was, again, the COVID era. So everybody had like their backdrops on their Zoom. And of course, my backdrop was the real video store. And everybody would talk to like, hey, nice backdrop. We had like, no, I'm actually in a video store. Like, wait, you're in a video store? I'm like, yeah, it's my store. So that was cool. And then finally, yeah, some guys in England, Bluefinch, believed in us and they gave us a micro budget. And I guess we were off and running and we shot this sucker in spring of 2022.
And all the hundreds upon hundreds of tapes we see on the shelves of Blaster Video in the shop, they're all made up movie titles, no original films.
Yeah, they are the only ones that were legit. Charlie Band was super cool at Full Moon and let us use Full Moon stuff. Tim League at Draft House let us use the Draft House stuff. And here in Canada, the Black Fawn guys, which is ironic because that distro company is who's distributing our movie here in Canada. They let us use their posters too. But the rest, what it was like Cody, a guy back home in Vancouver, he printed out all these fake titles, but they showed up in tubes like posters. So it's just the spines. We had to meticulously cut them all, paste them all. So it was 3,800 or 4,000 fake titles. Yeah. I mean, if you watch the movie, like, again, you like want to be a stickler and kind of pause it and zoom in or whatever, there's a lot of repeat titles and there's about 5 sequels to the same damn title, but whatever, you get the idea.
Definitely. And your co-star, is it Yaya Adams? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
She's a real fine, plays her role superbly. How did she get involved and did the two of you get along? Did you have much time prior to the shoot to get to know each other?
Yeah, so she was actually the only one that was like cast through audition. She's from Toronto. The rest of us have known each other forever. Did a couple of Zoom auditions with her, and then I let the guys decide who was going to be, and they went with her. And no, we got along great. You know, it was kind of funny. The real life situation definitely mirrored the movie situation. So it kind of worked because here we got me, Tim, Cody, Josh, even the Aston guys, we know each other forever. And then you got this fish out of water character. Yeah. So it worked with her character. She didn't quite get it, you know, but that was great. They actually worked so well for the part, right? And it was funny. Same with the crew. So making all the shorts. It was just like a group of 5 or 6 buddies in my real video store back here at home. So fucking day one of filming this movie, I walk on set, the first shot, and I realized, oh my God, there's like 15 people behind the camera. Like they were all hired. And I kept thinking like, these guys think I'm a real actor. Talk about imposter syndrome. So like, luckily there was a fine bottle of Jameson in the green room for most of the shoot for me and Joshy, called Liquid Courage, you know. But it was cool because the shoot was 15 days, but we did get shut down for a week because of COVID, because it was that time. But as we got to know all the crew and everything, once they were like, wait, you got a real video store? And we explained how this has been a passion project for 10 years. Everybody got on board. Like everybody was like, from the grips to like the sound guy, like whoever I bonded with over a cigarette, you know, they're like, man, that's fucking cool, you know? And funny enough, we shot it in a city called Hamilton outside of Toronto. It's actually playing there tomorrow night. So most of the crew that worked on the movie will get a chance to see it for the first time themselves. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we got along great. My favorite scene with her is when I'm explaining to her about the video nomicon and what it is, which was totally ad-lib. I think we had this whole idea of like, okay, we got to explain where this tape come from and who made it and blah, blah, blah. And then we literally shut down. It was just us on the set. We were getting all frustrated. And I'm like, guys, maybe we shouldn't overthink this. You know, like most movies, who gives a shit about an explanation? You put the thing in, bad things happen. Okay, now we can move along with the story, you know, keep it as simple as that. Maybe when you over explain something, it can hurt the movie. That's why usually I'm not a big fan of prequels. I don't care. I don't want to know how we got here, but we're here, so let's move on.
What happened to the tape? Is it in your store on a shelf somewhere?
It is in my store. Of course, everybody asks what props do you want to keep? And I said, is the caster mask spoken for? And Tim's like, yeah, I'm keeping that. So I got the tape, I got the fake VHS covers of Beaver Lake Massacre, Fury of the Viper, Warp Gate. And the thing I definitely wanted to keep, I got the childhood drawing of me and Castor Creeley, which was drawn by our production designer. And I think Tim just told her, like, just draw like you were Kevin and 6 years old. And yep, nailed it. So that's behind my real desk.
Is there going to be any Beaver Lake Massacre merchandise, like t-shirts or anything?
Well, we already did print some. My friend who helps volunteer in my shop, we have a press machine in the back room. The minute like gave us permission, like, yeah, you guys can use whatever you want. We've pressed Beaver Lake shirts. We've pressed Taekwondo Dad shirts. We've pressed Warp Gate, Last Video Store shirts, Blaster Video, you know. I mean, selfishly, there is a part of me that's a little bit bummed out. We didn't call the store the Lobby DVD shop, like my real store, because I'm like, then we would have made like the ultimate commercial for my store.
Well, is there a flip side to that? Have you considered changing the lobby to Blaster Video?
Well, you know, it was funny. If you look closely, there's the membership cards of Blaster Video. It says open, I think it's 10 to 10 or something like that. I close at 7 every day. And I'd be like, dude, you're open till 10 now? I'm like, no, I'm not open till 10 now. Or guys will come in. Hey, Kev, it's my first time here. Do I get a free rental? No, you don't get a free rental. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. Yeah, it's I don't know why Blaster stuck out, but the one thing I will say is when Tim's like, okay, we got to pick an address for the fake video store, and the 10815, that's actually the real address for the store here, but the Unita Avenue, of course, you know, we named it after Return of the Living Dead, Unita Medical Supplies, because it's like my gateway into these kind of movies as a kid. Like that was the perfect movie to see as a 10-year-old.
How is it for you watching, I mean, you saw the film in Sheffield, you've seen it all over Canada. How is it for you watching it with audiences around the world? You must be incredibly proud. It's been a long journey to get to this point, not only through the video store, but through getting the film together, through all the shorts and everything.
Yeah, 100%. You know, if somebody would have told me, hey, Kev, when you're in your late 40s, you're going to star in a movie that's going to play around the world, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. So the world premiere was in the legendary Alamo Draft House in Austin, Texas, at Fantastic Fest. You know, here's our little movie playing with, at that time, like the remake of Toxic Avenger was playing there with Elijah Wood and Kevin Bacon and Dinklage and the latest VHS movie and Joe Lynch's new movie. And then there's our little weird Canadian movie. I wasn't nervous at all for that because I'm like, I'll never see these people again. If they hate it, they hate it. And a lot of the Canadian jokes definitely went over their heads a little bit, but luckily our biggest supporter on that night was from your neck of the woods, our man, Jake West, the director. I knew Jake through the internet, but I never met him until we got there. And he just gives me a big hug right off the bat. And it was like, my God, this is like, Jake's like our crazy, awesome uncle. You know, he was just so vibrant and so pumped up for us. He sat right beside me on that opening night. And I remember the next day, because we were there for a few days, you know, we got a couple negative reviews. I was a little bit bummed out. I told myself, don't stay off the internet. It's probably parasites anyways. And Jake comes up to me and he goes, don't fucking worry about those reviews. When I made Evil Aliens, some guy gave me a review. They called it Close Encounters of the Turd Kind. It's bullshit. You made a great movie. And so, yeah, it was good to have his support. But anyway, so I wasn't really that nervous for them. But when we came back here to my home city, and they said we're going to have a screening of it at a film festival here about a month later. Now, our theater fits 525 people. We sold out a week before the movie even screened. I was fucking petrified because this is literally, if this movie bombs in front of these people, I'm never going to hear the end of it. The day of the movie, we showed at 7 p.m. I was working at the video store. I was so nervous. I closed at 3 p.m. I went to the bar I worked at down the street. I started drinking at 3:15 in the afternoon. By the time the movie was playing, I got some great video of like the lineup around the block. It was fucking unreal. And it's one of those beautiful theaters with the old school marquees too, you know. Anyways, I've had a few, let's just say. I've had a few to drink at this point. And the other cool thing was Yaya came from Toronto. This was like, I think her first time in Edmonton. She got to see the real video store the night before. So when she walked down the stairs are almost the same way. She was like, oh, I get it now. She felt like she was back in the movie. Like I think she understood why this was so passionate for us. But in that theater, every customer I've known for years in there, everybody I've worked with, every bar was in there. Everybody that, you know, helped video stores succeed was in there. I'm like, if these people fucking hate it, I'm screwed, man. I got emotional. I was all like, you know, dripping out of my eyes and shit. It might have been the Jägermeister. I don't know. But the crowd, when the movie started, it was like we were screening Army of Darkness and everybody had seen this movie and we're quoting the lines or Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like every bit that we wanted people to laugh at, they nailed it. It's like they'd seen the movie, but in a weird way, maybe they had because they've all seen our shorts leading up to it. So they knew what they were getting into. So that reaction was amazing. And then, coming to Sheffield, what I appreciated was, unlike, the Austin audiences, it must be a Commonwealth thing, Canada and England, because I felt the crowd in Sheffield got the jokes you were going for much more than in the US. But yeah, it's very surreal to say the least. And what makes it even more weird is 1 minute you're in Texas, 1 minute you're in Sheffield, and then a day later I'm sitting behind my real video store desk going, your movies are late. Like, it's just another day at the office again. It's like you come down from that high. So,
but it's all in the same world for you as well, then.
Yeah, I know. Just one's imaginary and one you hope pays the bills. We keep on trucking.
Where do you see the future of the VHS format or just physical media in general over the next few years?
It's weird. I mean, having the shop for 20 years, I think that the lowest point was probably around 2012, 13, where you're just like, all the video stores are finally closing up. Streaming sites, Netflix is taking over. And you're like, maybe this is it, man. Like, it's looking pretty bleak. Everybody's being lazy and staying at home.
Strangely, that's when you started all the film projects as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, to be honest, when the pandemic happened, I couldn't let people in my store for a bit. There was no bar work, obviously. So I was like, is this going to kill my store? Because a lot of businesses went under over here. But a weird thing happened. Out of desperation, I posted my entire inventory on my website through Letterboxd, and people were burning through their streaming site so quick. They would text me lists of the movies. I would meet them outside with the movies. And I hate to say it, but man, business was great for like a year straight. Like, it was booming. In fact, my biggest concern was not getting enough product because the borders were closed at the time. Now we live in a world where I don't think VHS will ever be as big as, let's say, vinyl. Where in the 90s, you couldn't give away vinyl. Nobody wanted. Now you go to a record shop, it's pricey, man. The collectors are pretty rabid and they're charging a lot. But VHS, people kept donating tapes to the store and they were piling up on my stairwell as you came down. So finally, about 3 months ago, we cleaned out one of the back rooms and we made a mini video store in the video store. So we have a room dedicated to VHS tapes.
I'm on my way.
It's all the young kids. Every time I get a new batch in, it's like 16, 17-year-olds. They're like scooping them up. Can be anything from Pulp Fiction to Pootie Tang to, Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield. They don't care. Porky's. I'm like, do you even have a VCR? And they're like, no, but I'll find one at the thrift store. I'm like, well, make sure you get a tube TV as well. Okay. Don't be hooking that up to a flat screen. It's quite atrocious, to say the least. I think the other big thing is, like, going to a record shop, going to a video store. I think people still like to have a human connection. I use this analogy all the time. You're sitting at home, you're scrolling through your streaming site. 45 minutes later, you pick nothing. You finally do pick something. If you're not into it within 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to stop it and go, I'll get back to it. You're never going to get back to it. Now, you make the effort to come to the video store and decide, I'm going to rent 3 movies. I got them for a week. And you're touching the covers. You're chatting with somebody like me. We're nerding out. You could have picked the 3 shittiest movies of all time. But you know what? You're going to watch all 3 of those movies while you have those movies rented out, because even if they're that bad, you can't wait to return to me and tell me the story of how you suffer through this movie, how your girlfriend left you because you made her watch this movie, how your parents disowned you because it was the worst movie they'd ever seen. But we can laugh about it. We can talk about it. Like, all right, well, maybe this will be more your cup of tea then. And then, we can start the next one.
Perfect.
I think that the whole socializing thing, there's a communal thing about being able to shoot the shit. We've all seen High Fidelity. We've all seen Clerks. Like, we know it's a weird world, man. Empire Records. How many kids come into my store like that are in their late teens, early 20s? They ask if I'm hiring, and I'm like, sorry guys, I can't. And I fucking feel for them, man, because I tell them, like, I wish you were born in my generation, late 80s, early 90s. If you got a job at a record shop or a video store, it was the coolest fucking job, And I remember my first video store gig, man, I got grilled. That interview was like intense. They weren't fucking around. I think it was HMV too. Now that I think about it, like, you think you know movies, do you? It was like, I'm like, can I have a cigarette for this interview? I'm kind of stressing out right now. It felt more like an interrogation or some shit. But yeah, no, I feel bad for kids because, I mean, who wouldn't want to work at a video store at that age, especially if you love movies? But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've had wedding photos in my video store. I've had baby photos in my video store. I've had 3 bands shoot music videos in my video store. One of my favorite metal bands from our neck of the woods is a metal band called Stryker. If you're a fan of like Maiden and Priest and that power metal style, check out Stryker on YouTube. The video is called Circle of Evil. They shot it in my store. You'll know right away. But the wedding photo one cracked me up the best because you had this lovely dressed up bride and groom and their groomsmaid and bridesmaids all like decked out to the nines, and they were pumped, but you could tell like their parties, like, what the fuck are we doing in this creepy, dusty basement video store? We're getting our wedding photos done. Well, it turned out the husband was a big Jason fan. The wife was a big Freddy fan. So I had to be like, well, we put in Freddy versus Jason. You guys sit on my couch and we'll pause it right when they're about to collide with each other. And that's the photo they went with, which is pretty cool.
I love it. You mentioned renting 3 shitty films a minute ago. I want you to time travel a little back to one of those Friday nights in the late 80s or early 90s. You head into your video store. What movie soundtrack would you have on your Walkman? And what 3 tapes you going to rent for the weekend?
All right. I'm going to sort of cheat here. Answer A is the late 80s. Answer B is the early 90s. I thought about it. Answer A, on my Walkman, the official movie soundtrack from 1988 for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That fucking opening track by Big Pig, that's a banger of a song. Power Tool, Extreme, do you want to play? Yeah, like, come on, man. If you know the movie, you know the song. That's when Beethoven's go wild in the fucking the mall there.
You got the big ballad. You got some In Time on there.
Oh, dude. I still play those jammers at the bar. In Time, that's get the fuck out of the bar kind of song. That's when everybody's drunk. And Tuesday night at my local pub. So obviously you pissed away your life if you're drinking on Tuesday night. But that song is just like myself. And that song's a reflection on things like getting all emotional. Yeah. So that's the soundtrack I'm locking into. We're also going to pretend it's 1988, the same year Bill and Ted came out. So 3 rentals. I always tell my customers, picking movies is like going to a buffet line at a restaurant. You want to mix it up, get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So it's 1988. Young Kev feels like he wants to revisit something he's already seen a few times, but it's been a hot minute. So we're going to go with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, my favorite sequel. I think a lot of our favorite sequel of that franchise. Speaking of banger tunes, Dawkins, baby. And also the first VHS tape to actually put a music video on the tape. That was a brilliant marketing idea. The next one I remember was the VHS tape for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. The Dickies music video was on there. To this day, the only fucking format with the music video on it. Even when Arrow released that gorgeous edition like last year or 2 years ago, they have a documentary about the video. They have the Dickies on there talking about it. No video. Must be a copyright thing. Anyway, sorry. So Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. I am also going to go with my favorite. It has not aged well, and it's not politically correct by any means anymore, but my favorite sex comedy, Revenge of the Nerds from 1984. I'm unapologetically still a fan, even though, yes, I understand
Who cares?
It's trouble. Well, you know the world we live in now. It's celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. God bless that movie. It made nerds cool, sort of. And then I already mentioned it earlier, but because it left such an impression of me in the movie theater, I'm going to go with 1985's Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ray Don Chung, and Vernon Wells, of course. God, a movie's just that. Don't get me wrong. Predator, masterpiece. Total Recall, masterpiece. Terminator, obviously. But Commando has the best one-liners out of all Arnie's movies.
Such an easy watch as well.
Dude, it's so... I think that was movie that invented one man could kill an entire army, and barely an inconvenience at all. So now it's 1993, and I'm still going to the video store. But this time on my CD Walkman, I am listening to the official movie soundtrack of Judgment Night. Emilio Estevez, Dennis Leary, a brilliant combination of metal and hip hop.
You're the second person to choose Judgment Night soundtrack.
For good reasons, baby. Fucking Helmet, House of Pain together, Ice-T and Slayer. It's so good. What am I renting? I'm going to rent Pump Up the Volume by Christian Slater because I always tell the younger kids, they're actually having a screening of it here at our local theater this month. I'm like, listen, you guys, before there was fucking YouTube channels, before there was podcasts, there was pirate radio. And it was the only way to get your arrogant thoughts out to the world. And by the way, that movie has a great soundtrack too. So Pump Up the Volume is choice number 1. Even though it's from the late 80s, I am going to go with the double feature. I guess, no, it would have been VHS. Fuck it. Anthony Hitchcock's Waxwork 1. I adore that movie because to me, it was coming up with a plot where you can incorporate all your favorite monsters in one movie. Like the video store movie. We can throw all these characters in and it still works with the plot. Geez, I almost feel like I should make a classy pick. Because I've been, oh shit. Of course. What am I thinking? I still watch this movie once a month because...
Once a month.
What movie do I watch once a month to cheer myself up? The magical, brilliant team-up combination of Mr. John Carpenter and Mr. Kurt Russell. And I'm wearing the shirt. I just realized it. Big Trouble in Little China. That movie, I feel so bad for Johnny Carpenter. Out of all the genre directors, as much as I love Craven and Romero and all of them, in the end, I think John Carpenter had the best track record as far as you look at his filmography, especially in the 70s and 80s. But like my favorite movies that he made, most of them bombed in the theater. They Live, Big Trouble. I think New York did okay. That's why we got Escape from LA, but we don't talk about Escape from LA. Prince of Darkness rules. I mean, that movie was fantastic. The Thing, I mean, one of the greatest movies of all time.
That's right behind you.
Yeah, it's funny. I got classy The Thing behind me, and then I got the forgotten about brilliant masterpiece that came without warning with Jack Palance and Martin Landau, which was the predecessor to The Predator. It literally is about a big-ass alien coming down and hunting humans. Ironically, the alien was also played by the same actor who'd go on to play the Predator.
No way.
Yeah. If you've never seen it, it's terrible, but it's awesome. Kino gave it a nice release.
Oh, man. Perfect picks. Kevin, love chatting with you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And nothing but success, or ongoing success for the last video store. Can't wait for the Blu-ray release.
Yes. December 9th, I think. I got the US release coming in. I think I got 300 units already. So, of course, I'm going to charge an extra $5 if people want my signature because I'm going to get carpal tunnel syndrome. But I got to make some money off of this gig. I'll just tell them, look, by you buying the last video store keeps the last video store open in real life. So thank you.
It was great seeing Sheffield. Great to speak to you today and hopefully catch up with you in real life down the line sometime soon.
Well, we have to make a better movie. That's the way I can afford to come visit you. So it'll be done.
Huge thank you to Kevin Martin for hooking up with me on this week's Straight to Video podcast. An absolute blast to hear his stories and love for the VHS format and just movies in general. Hopefully one day I can pay him a visit at the Lobby DVD shop in Edmonton, Canada, but for now I'll just enjoy The Last Movie Store, which is out now from Arrow Video. For those of you on our Patreon page at patreon.com/80s video shop, and if you're in the Video Legend and Video Nasty tiers, then we're having a Christmas party at our 80s video shop and we will be showing The Last Video Store as a special treat for your support. So please head on over to the Patreon page if you want to find out more. So things are going to be super busy at the 80s video shop leading up to Christmas. On Saturday the 14th of December, we're going to be having a Santa's Grotto with a difference as our own Art the Clown from Terrifier will be taking the place of the big man. Entrance to the grotto is just a $5, but that includes a photo with art both on your own camera and one taken by us, along with a badge and a voucher for the shop. Then on the very next day, Sunday the 15th of December, the one and only Lawrence R. Harvey from the Human Centipede movies will be doing a special in-store meet and greet to sign autographs and take selfies with you all. Lawrence will be there from 12 noon until 4 p.m, so hope some of you can come along to meet him. So that's it for this week's episode of the podcast. So until we chat again, make sure to always be kind. Please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.